a special episode of The Diplomats. I'm Ed Sullivan, Go Horns Go with the Nexus Discord server. Our podcast is brought to us by diplomacybriefing.com. I am in wonderful Austin, Texas for work-related reasons on Cesar Chavez Street. And 30 years ago when I went to school here, Cesar Chavez Street is where you went to get knifed. Now you come for great cigar bars at Cigar Vault East. It's a Renaissance place, so I'm enjoying it, but you will have to deal with the traffic. One thing, though, the most special of episodes, because we have the winner. The third time's a charm. Third time lucky. Any number of expressions you want, but in his third time in the Nexus Finals, our only third time finalist, Ewok, Village Idiot, Chris, Greg, a man of many names, has won. Congratulations. How do you feel?
I feel good, man. It's been a long time coming. I'm happy to finally, it's third time's the charm, you're right.
So, right off the bat, I'm just your time is limited and my battery is short. So, we are going to get to this. Well, I think we can make it an hour or so, but here we are. We got the power selection. You've worked hard. I've referred to this in other interviews, the consequential semifinal game. You know you have a bad relationship with Riaz. I mean, it's announced in that game he will never work with you at all.
Yep.
He said in his interview he picked England thinking you would be in the East so he wouldn't have to deal with you. And Tanjian says he's basically going to just ride or die with you to everybody. You're already the topic of so many things. So tell us why you picked Russia, what you thought about all this, and oh my God, were you depressed or happy about hearing all these things, interviews?
Being the topic of conversation, that makes me feel good. Yeah, a little both. So I'll start with why I picked. I had some choices going in here. I didn't have to pick four, but I like being at that middle of the pick my country. And I know I have at least four countries that I feel comfortable playing. I originally wanted to go west, and those got picked up right away. Those were the first ones got. So my options were to pick a corner country if I can. So my options came down to Russia or Turkey. And I like Russia because I find that I'm a diplomatic player, I'm a transactional player, I like to be able to make deals and these sorts of things. And as Turkey, you've only got so much ability you can do that. As Russia, you've got the ability to deal with England, Germany, France in the later game. You've got a lot more stretch. So I do like being Russia.
I just want to make sure I heard you right, which is you wanted to be in the West. If Riaz had picked England and a Western power was available, would you have risked that, even if it was France? You said you like four countries. I know you like France. Would you have picked, say, a France?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I didn't want to walk into the game knowing I already have half of my alliance options off the table. I'd have to rely on whoever the other player was to pick, and that would have been too limiting. So no, I would have gone to the East regardless after Riaz picked England.
How much damage control did you have to do with Tanja's comments about wanting basically to work with you?
That was huge for me. As Russia, to survive those first few years, you have to really rely on diplomacy to be able to get through that. And nobody really wanted to talk to me. It was automatically assumed I was in this juggernaut. So that was a problem for me. I didn't want Tanjan and Turkey, especially not announcing that we were a juggernaut automatically. I like juggernauts. Juggernauts are great, but I don't want people knowing I'm in a juggernaut. As soon as I two are already fighting other countries and suddenly I can get momentum with it. People know you're in a juggernaut right away. That starts to shape the other alliances around the board to be anti-juggernaut.
So how'd you handle it?
I don't know. I had a lot of I had a lot of conversations with Italy and Austria. We had talked about options of having an AIR. I seriously considered a wintergreen. It was actually one of my preferences to do going out the gate. I didn't want to be assigned this alliance. Going into these finals games with the time, I automatically have a bias against wanting to really invest in either England or Turkey. I feel both of these countries have advantages if they get too large going into the late game. So I was already starting to look at an exit strategy out of the situation that I was facing.
France told me that he tried to get you to move north. Is that true?
There were conversations about it, but he was uncommittal about. He talked about I'm going to go full out into England. I'm like, okay, well, if you decide to do that, let's talk. I'll consider going north if that's really what you're going to do. But that fell apart, not because of me, but because of his conversations with Germany, and it just didn't come together. So, yeah, I would have considered it. It wasn't my first choice. I really didn't want to make this a vendetta with me and Riaz. I've had those situations in season 5, when me and Kong spent most of the game just going back and forth at each other. So I didn't want that. So my preference was to not engage with Riaz and just split up the board.
Did you bring that up with him? Did you bring that, like, for example, he doesn't move to Edinburgh here.
Yep.
Was this a discussion? I'm sure it had to be a discussion point, but just the overall, like, look, if you put a fleet in Norway, fine.
Yeah. The first round, me and Riaz, we had a talk, and I was grossly concerned that he was going to come at me. He said he was going to come at me in any future games. I was nervous about that. We had a talk, and he was very reasonable about it. We were like, why don't you just stay west? I'll stay east. Maybe best we don't even really have too many conversations together, because when we talk, we tend to fight a lot. So, yeah, we just agreed to stay out of each other's hair as much as possible, not talk to each other. I did talk to him about going to Edie. He agreed, or going to York. He agreed. I found that to be my best coup of 1901. So yeah, it was a nice victory.
And you've got this issue with the Juggernaut being announced by Turkey.
Yeah.
But you were a beneficiary of tension between AI. Did that just sort of happen organically, or were you involved in helping stir the pot there?
It did. I had no idea. I was, I knew they had history in a previous finals game together. I didn't know if it was good or bad history, so I assumed they would stick together. Me and Matt's had a lot of conversations early about doing Wintergreen, but he was just so nervous about. I was going to pick Kanjan as my preferred ally. He's made that assumption, so we couldn't come to an agreement how a Wintergreen would work. I wanted to take out Pez first because I didn't want to attack Turkey right away. Because as Russia, when an AIR attacks Turkey, a lot of times Russia's the one that gets left out.
I want you to address what I think is probably your biggest challenge, which is your reputation. There's a legend, there's a myth, part fiction, part, nonfiction about how you play. And of course we amp that up on the Diplomats, as does Lady Razor. But I would imagine you face an obstacle of trust, and it's not going to be handled just by changing your name to Ewok. So how do you handle people worried about trusting you?
I build relationships. I have real relationships with people. I let them know that what I'm really about. People know that I'm, to some extent, a transactional player. I give them deals that help them. I look into players' needs before my own, and then I find a way to overlap them. I don't just automatically look for opportunities to have people. And that first little while, I'm not even thinking of it. I'm building relationships. I'm building alliances. And it tends to work out. I have a little bit of time for people to get to know me. I personally think my reputation is overblown as a unscrupulous stabber. That's my opinion. So yeah, I build relationships.
Maybe we'll call you a scrupulous stabber, but I'll reiterate. Look, even when I've talked about it before on the podcast many times, our war of words, even when things were bad between us, we were still joking. Okay, we were still joking about The Godfather, about me messing up the Sally and the whole bit. You are as accessible as another player will let you be. Chavez Street in Austin, Texas. But you are. I mean, you will, as best you can, always try and keep the relationship open.
Yeah, yeah, always.
The other question I have is, you're an extended deadline player. You're an expert at it, and I've expressed frustration now being so used to virtual face-to-face, going back to extended deadline, time management. You know when to strike deals, and this player who likes things done all in the last hour, versus someone like me who's anal retentive. I'm an I daughter. I'm a T crosser. I'm a lawyer. I like to read documents. You know, like I like a little earlier deal. How do you like to handle that?
I can't stand the last minute deals. I understand why they happen, especially in these finals games. Players don't want their fans shopped around for better deals. Um, it's a smart way to play, but it's for people who have lives, people who are working, people who are doing different things at that last hour. It's frustrating.
And I guess the other question, just before we get into the mechanics of the game, I don't know if you heard Pez's interview or not. We've had so many podcasts, but he did say at one point he found it easy to. He said he doesn't think you like to lie, and that when you're more open with people, you're telling the truth, and when you're more guarded, he knew you were lying. I totally disagreed with that. Hearing that, but I don't view this as a place where I push back. I view this as these interviews as a place where you can say what you want to say and let others judge. How did you react to that?
There is a whole story to that we can jump ahead to that if you want, but that is a whole chapter in this.
All right. Well, we can handle it when it happens. But yeah, no, I think one of your strengths is it's difficult to detect when you are. I think your tone range is very similar, or at least it is with me.
Yeah.
In our 3 or 4 games, and so, which borders on mostly true. But and I feel like I have to pin you down. But if people don't pin you down, you're not going to get pinned down. You know, to me, that's what you have.
Poker face, and I've always taken the philosophy of I'm going to push through the round with the best intention, and then at the last minute, I'm going to decide whether I want to stick to that good intention or not. So it's most of the round, I'm sincere, and then I'll consider if it's better to not be sincere.
Yeah, but I mean, to your credit, right? Like, I think newer players would learn from you, and I think that this is a good opportunity, especially for newer players. You have an ability to think more than one season ahead, and I think so many extended deadline players may fall for deals or things they want to do because they're only seeing how that will affect them in the here and now. And you see a couple moves ahead, like a good pool player or chess player. Am I right in thinking that that's how you approach the game? You think about the effects of what you're doing.
Yeah, it is. I do. I think many rounds ahead, and I look at the entire board. Sometimes that hurts me because not everybody else does that. But while I'm busy worried about, okay, that guy on the far side of the board is supposed to do something, we don't know jump on that, and I go running to deal with it, and nobody runs behind me. They're all taking advantage of my empty back door. That's going to haunt me in pretty much every game, every finals I've ever had.
Okay, let's go to the moves here. Spring 1901, it's the most common opening by Russia. I think last year I had it at over 70% of all diplomacy players played that. That makes sense. Tanjian says all of this was arranged. No Italy move in Trieste, which if there is a juggernaut, this is pretty good. And you get an army in York, you have to be happy with the outcome here.
Very happy. Yeah, I think the biggest move here was my home. That was a sign that Tanjian was planning to go to Constantinople, shuffle around Ankara, and we were going to really push towards Italy and Austria and get a nice fast head start.
We go to the fall, and you put the fleet, if I remember. No, you put the army, but you supported it and you don't take the Black Sea. I'm assuming that's arranged.
Correct, yes.
Why do you like to do that as opposed to just taking the Black? I mean, I know you had to deal with Turkey, but like that requires a lot of trust. I assume you just trusted Tanjian would not move to the Black.
I did. I mean, Tanjian's a pretty honest guy. I mean, he when he says stuff, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, he means it. I wasn't ready to start considering options against Tanjian because I knew I was comfortable with him, and I didn't know what to expect out of the rest of the board. I didn't know if the Central Alliance was coming. Um, I had conversations with Italy, but he didn't seem completely on board with the wintergreen. So this just seemed the right move to make at this point.
Well, and for newer players, they should think about something else too, which is the benefit of this move. If you trust Turkey not to go to the black, which I think you had good reasons to, given Austria and Italy here, if you're Turkey, to not move to the black. But had you moved to the black, then you face a tricky situation of where you build. And now you're building too, and you're forced to build north. And Riaz, as he said in his interview, really couldn't do anything about it. So it not just helps build trust with an ally, it helps you gain, but you don't build the fleet there, which would have been highly aggressive. Tell me the thought process here.
I let Dave pick my build in St. Petersburg. He was nice enough to let me into Sweden. It was under the agreement at the time that I was going to move out of Sweden. I was going to move into Norway. He was going to go at sea, and he was going to walk into Sweden whenever he was ready for it. That was the original plan. We were, up until now, we thought this was going to be France and Germany versus England. And that didn't turn out to be the case. What you can learn about Philip is he is really good at masking his real intentions, and he's great at selling hope. For many years, we like, any minute now he's going to attack Riyadh, it's going to happen, and it's going to be this Germany-France thing. He is the master at selling hope.
Had you played with Dave Roberts before?
I've never played with Dave Roberts. Dave and Ted the only two on the board.
So, Russia and Germany have an important relationship. We know that playing Germany and Russia together. So, tell me your impressions and tell me how you handled negotiations with him.
Everybody's going to tell you the same thing about Dave. He's just such a nice guy. Everything I'd heard about him before this game, I talked to some people what to expect from him, and they're like, he's a loyal guy. He's a nice guy. He's an honest guy. If you can get him on your side, you're golden. You've got a great thing going. So I wanted to have him on my side. I believed him when he told me he was going to let me into Sweden, and he did. And after that, I just had the utmost confidence that we were good.
Well, just two things, which is, one, he took a lot of heat for letting you into Sweden because that really, cemented the EF. It may have really affected him by doing that. But two, your relationship with him was such that two other players let Dave Roberts decide whether to give you the ultimate victory or not. And cultivating that. Did you cultivate that relationship? And if so, how did you do it?
I had a talk with Dave at the end as to why he ended up choosing to pick me, and he told me the primary reason was, he had some other people that had wronged him, and I not really wronged him. But the biggest thing is when he stabbed me for Sweden, I didn't get mad. I didn't freak out on him. I didn't do any of those things, and he respected that. He treated the fact that he stabbed me for Sweden as making up for my never coming to his aid. And he felt prayer, and other people did not prayer with, and because I never really got emotional. I never. So that was his main reason for that he told me why he, in the end, endorsed my win.
And did you believe him that he built the fleet build here, even though it's out of position and generally considered totally anti-Russian? Did you chill out with this, or were you?
I asked him. I wanted everybody to go towards England. This was intended to be an anti-England build, or for him to take Sweden while I went towards Norway. I was expecting, and we've been promised a bunch of French fleets here. I had.
Pushed, you were duped as well. It wasn't just Dave.
Duped as well, I was an unknowing accomplice that I helped push Dave towards his fleet build, thinking that Philip was building a bunch of fleets. So I was not happy about that. I fully believed that this was going to be Germany, France, Russia versus England. I used to have good instinct. Philip,
all right. Tanjian says this is a definite stab. Sevastopol to black. Was it?
No. It was mentioned ahead of time. It got missed. I didn't wait for him to.
You told him.
I told him, yeah, I told him, it's a great idea for me to go to CES. That way, if you lose Bulgaria, we can get you back in there. It's a good idea. So I went in there at the time with good intentions to push him into Bulgaria. But at the time, he wasn't perfectly available, and it just got missed. But I was able to, I knew he didn't catch it. I knew I was going in there not invited and not with a blessing. But I thought it was the right move, and I could point back to, okay, hey, I said it. It's right
Did you
there.
tell him that like 15 minutes before the deadline?
So quite a while. But yeah, different time.
Well, he wasn't just warned by you. Pez
Yeah.
told him. I think Pez said at this point there was an AIR or a pretend AIR. Pez says he affirmatively warned Tanjian that this was happening, trying to cultivate Turkey a bit, and he didn't believe it.
I mean, there's definitely a little talk of AIR. I mean, Pez were talking quite a bit. Him going to Bulgaria, that was us with the fleet. So that was us talking. I was filling him out for, I never really considered an AR, but maybe, it's starting to be very amicable to suggestions. Maybe there's potential here. So, yeah, and this year, this is where we really started, me and Pez started talking about it a lot. It was obvious that England and France were together, and things were going to keep going the way they were with the Juggernaut versus AI. We weren't going to be able to deal with this make. Look at the whole board. I'm not looking at front of me. So I'm like, okay, we need to figure out the safety. It's not going to work. We're just going to fiddle around for the next while, get all gummed up, and what's going to take? We need to figure out something. So we had a conversation here. We've got an opportunity now that if I were to attack Turkey right now, he'd be gone in no time. I could build in the north, and I can go and help Germany, and you can take Italy. You talk about going west, you can jump on him, and you can get a bunch of centers. We've got growth paths, a healthy position for stability, and we can actually retaliate and then deal with what's going on in the game right now. And that's why I ended up attacking Ankara here. Now, I get a lot of slack at this point for how ruthless the stab is of Turkey. I don't necessarily see it that way. For me, up until now, there has been, this is 1902. It's the second year. Nobody has really attacked. I haven't attacked Austria. I haven't attacked Britain. In any other game, this would just be the natural turning point where people are choosing who their allies are. It looks worse because everybody had assigned the Juggernaut together. They just assumed because of history that that's what was happening. In my eyes, I have a personalized, biased view of this, but it chose Austria.
I'm hearing that this is a response to the EF.
Yeah.
And Germany looking like it's not going to make it beyond 1904.
Yeah. I thought if I could get to Germany in time, I could help him, and then he would become a minority ally in the situation. And having an AR with a Germany, that's a fun position to be in. And this eliminates the problem of me being in this juggernaut that nobody wants to talk to, nobody wants to deal with. It solved a lot of my problems. So I really got on board with it. I thought it was a great idea. Has turned out to be, Twitter's word, and he attacked Max. And at this point, this seemed great.
Okay, 2 questions. One is, were you internally chuckling at yourself by Warsaw Holding in light of Ewok, Lady Razor's great art from season 5 saying Warsaw saw Warsaw Hold from a distance? I mean, you went right back to Warsaw Hold, your most popular move.
Nothing to do with any of that stuff. No, it was just I was trying to be friendly towards Austria. I wanted to have the flexibility to go towards Austria if it turned out to be true, and if it was true to me, I could go towards Germany.
And this is the turn that you said there's a big story coming up in 03 where you turn back towards Turkey, away from Austria, and we sort of highlighted this a little earlier, talking about Pez saying he knew you were going to turn on him.
Okay, so there's a reason why people stopped talking to Pez. Word got out that Pez had been forwarding messages to everybody. was screenshotting in the beginning, and then the TD had to come in and say no more screenshots. It's not acceptable in the tournament. But he had actually forwarded Max a message from me that he just cut and paste and changed.
He changed it. He altered it.
He altered it. Well, he shaved it down. So the conversation was between me and Fez talking about what the way forward is going to be. He goes into Italy, make Novo, settle up north, yada. And he was like, well, I'm kind of concerned about that. I don't know if I can really hold it. Maybe aid. I don't know if this is a good idea. And my comment to him was, well, I don't think you need to worry about that. Max has no friends that can come to his aid right away. He's really freaking out about it. We've had conversations with other countries, and nobody can really afford to come right now because France is busy, Germany's busy, yada, yada, yada. The message got shaved down. Max has no friends. He's just freaking out and burning bridges. And to Max, I was like, somebody just called me a loser and I have no friends. He confronts me about that. So I think Pez's intent was that he was going to get Italy so mad at his allies, friends, to be able to attack him. But Max is pretty smart. He was still so mad at Pez for what had just happened. He just advanced on him. And he wasn't cool about it at all. Max is a very savvy player. He knows when he's getting played and getting used. So he used this opportunity himself to pull me in against his enemy. He negotiated that me and Turkey and Italy would converge on Pez. And at this point, I'm like, well, I guess my alliance is garbage now. I have to write off Pez, and I have to get in on this. I have to
get it back together with Turkey.
Yeah, which it wasn't the worst. It definitely killed momentum. Like, this was a momentum killer. I would have had a great position had I been able to stick with Pez and trust him and go forward with this. But I couldn't. So at least now, if I went back to Japan, it was with the blessing of Italy. So I could actually have a relationship with Japan to start being black. It wasn't all bad, but it wasn't a great. I would have loved to work with Pez and be.
If someone had told you at the end of 02, as Umble observed, that you had 7 in 02 and all you needed to do was hang on for 8 years and win, would you have believed them?
Not really. No, I think it peaked at 9 for England, so I never would have believed that 7 would have been enough. I think this was probably the lowest center count finals ever.
So, here the big move is the Dave stab, which you kind of understood. Desperate times call for desperate measures.
But I understand why he was telling he needed to shake things up.
Yeah, I think we can disagree with the tactics, and we did. Dave's explained why he did what he did. But the other thing is, you've got to manage a Tanj relationship. Ankara is eventually going to go back, right? Was that a demand Tanj made as part of joining you, or just knew at some point?
So I take it back. I'm going to make this right.
Did you write him a hat in hand email like you did to me?
I don't. We've always had rapport, even good times and bad times. So we just talked it out.
It's an inflection point here. The disband going down to 6. I'm sure you hated to disband the Finland fleet. You heard me critique it. You heard Umble critique it. We weren't in the game. You were. Tell me your thoughts.
I didn't see any point in having it. If up until this point, Philip was still like, any minute now, I'm going to go attack England. It's going to happen, but not quite yet. So I don't know what Finland was going to accomplish. I wasn't going to grow. In the back of my head, I still got that. Russia's a shark. It needs to keep moving, or else it's going to starve. So I got to look for where I can actually grow. And even more so, I was worried that I did think that there was the fact that Mid-Atlantic hadn't moved in so long. He was considering that stab. If I would have just put up a bunch of obstacles for Riaz in the north, he was going to keep going more and more in that top right corner, and it was going to give Philip all the reason in the world to hold on. And I didn't want to give him that ability to that reason. I'll go cherry pick off of Italy, and I'll stab England when I get the chance. He's going to be way up in game. You're going to be the bait, and I didn't want to be that. I was like, well, I'm going to help that window close for you, and you're going to make a decision whether you want to go for it or not. Even more so, I didn't want him to actually have such a great window that he succeeded and he had a giant position in the game. So I just wrote off the north. I picked that my game was going to be won or lost in the bottom right corner.
And I think, by saying that, what you're also saying is you knew at this point you're going to lose St. Petersburg eventually, but looking at the map, it's probably just going to be to a fleet, and it might not be right away.
Yeah, I can afford to lose one center. I have other centers I can.
I mean, not much here except I would call this repositioning. You lose anchor, I'm sure you knew that, but everything is getting in place.
Yeah, I was hopeful I'd be able to get into Budapest. Didn't happen. Cards didn't go my way, but that's fine. I can deal with it.
Good move. This was a good year.
Mm-hmm. What?
Riyadh stabs, first of all. Second, you get into Serbia, critical territory for Russia.
Yeah.
Tell us how you're feeling, and tell us what you're thinking about the stab. Did you know it was coming? Did you have a conversation with the Riyadh?
I had no idea. No, me and Riyadh, we didn't talk most of the game. We talked only we absolutely had to. But no, I had no idea. The only other person who I think was, outside of Germany was Italy, and that's credit to Anne on that. Knew everything about what was going down. I heard about it afterwards from that.
Yeah, I think the allegation is Max proposed this set of moves, except for the fleet to Berlin.
Yeah, he was all up in this. What I loved about this was it finally started to drop the mask of Diaz being the squeaky clean alliance player. I think he relies on that a lot. I think that's a lot of power being that alliance player, and he starts to sacrifice that. That takes a lot of his strength away. So for him to do this, that was I like that. But I was nervous because I've been warning about this type of thing for some time, and the only thing going through my head was, what do you do? This was around the same time Ed stabbed me, and I was rushing towards Italy, and you pretty much dominated the northern seas, and for England to have this much power early on and not a lot of fleets in the north, if you can get Denmark, Sweden, Norway, St. Petersburg, a lot of these northern coasts, you can hold it with not a lot of units. That's so much power when you just have to stall until 1910 and hold on. If you can get 9, up until now, the average for a win has been 2.5. 9 is 1 center away. Now, I was terrified that this game was decided in 1904. I mean, other Kurdistan situations where you beat them in and juggle it a bit. I was terrified.
It's a very worrisome position. You have no fleet. Germany has no fleet.
Yeah.
France's only fleet is in North Africa and Western Med, and there's a disband coming, right? England has locked up all the coastal centers. It makes a dangerous error here in the build.
I think this wave build didn't happen. This may have been the game. I think that wave build was a mistake.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it isn't really a game of inches. Especially this or fall 1910. I mean, it could have gone the other way for you. Which is crazy that you put this much effort for 2 months, and then your fate has to go in someone else's hands. But that's why they call the game diplomacy, not tactics. I mean, yeah.
I fully believe that if you can get to 1910 and be a contender for the win, any of those players earned it just as much. At some point, it's just a matter of luck going your way. However the mood the other players are at that point in time, they could have easily pushed it in any other direction. Any one of those 2 other players could have done it. I feel lucky.
Oh, I think you're being too modest, right? Because, look, we saw in Season 2, Super Werdy could have put you over the top, he could have put me over the top, and he put Pala over the top.
Yep.
That's who he chose. And Pala had a better relationship with Super Wary. Period. There was a better diplomatic victory, there. Just like I think you had a better relationship with Dave, with Tanjian, probably even with Philip, helping secure your victory. I mean, it's the little things that matter.
There's a lot of moving parts and just slightly different attitude from one player on that last day. It could have gone any way.
Right. Yeah, as you know, I still remember your "I'm a exceptionally good kingmaker" text that you wrote to me, and I would have thrown that back in your face if I had remembered. If I was one of these players. I'm not saying you didn't do that this time, but what I am saying is things count. These things are considered by players when they have the ultimate power.
Yeah, no, I learned a lot from that season too, and that's why I don't do things like when Dave attacked Sweden. I don't make a big deal about it anymore. And he said it himself, that was a big indication, that was a big influence on why he didn't. I've grown as a player.
The end of Pez is a great move. Nothing here is, I think, worrisome. Just from a Russian perspective, not only the wave build from England, but now what I view to be the inexplicable, from England's perspective, convoy to Norway. Attacking you, he really must have thought Philip was going to be turned around.
Yeah, I think Riaz put a little bit too much weight on his term. And I made these mistakes before, but he thought he'd be able to turn. He obviously didn't go to Liverpool because he thought he would be able to turn Philip into not retaliating. He thought he had Germany back on his side, and Dave and Philip, credit, they did a great job of selling it. They really convinced Riaz that we're and to his folly.
I didn't say this in the Riaz interview, but as you know, I watch and try and learn and try and improve my diplomacy game so much. That's one of the reasons that it's a privilege to talk to you. Eddie Brisson, the great Eddie Brisson, in his interview on Diplomacy Academy, sort of on lessons I've learned 50 years of playing diplomacy. And one of his top lessons is, he goes, you wouldn't believe it, but believe it or not, one of the big lessons I've learned is once you stab somebody, generally keep going. Don't.
Yeah. I learned that last season. Like when I stabbed EVR, I tried to make up with him for 3 years. That was my downfall in 65. I didn't going with Turkey this year either.
I think you might be able to get it away with someone who's got a kind of heart as Tanjian.
Yeah.
But I think had you done that to Conk, I'm not saying he doesn't have a kind heart. I'm sure he does in real life. But in diplomacy life, I don't think that would have happened. I don't think you would have gotten this level of cooperation from every player that you had done that to.
I got away with a lot here. After we'll get to the Mac thing later, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, nobody, as Audacious Hand would say, opened up their cellar of resentment against you, which was a deep and abiding discussion point. And it really starts not in 06, you lose St. Petersburg, okay, but we need to talk about this before I get into the other part. The hubris of drawing the VI. I'm not going to let you get away with this. Uh-huh. You can reveal to the world now, was this really an Ewok setup, or was this just a pure fuck up?
It was a fuck up. Okay. So this is when I started getting into the last half hour, let's set some orders type thing. So that's why I didn't do my proper homework on this. I stand by that. I mean, I fucked it. This was me being dumbass.
Under WebDip, you would have hauled St. Petersburg?
On any other website, it's by the rule book. This is an illegal move. You ignore it. You just pretend it didn't happen.
So it holds.
Yeah, it holds.
I thought you probably lost the game here, because you were so susceptible now. How did you manage this?
I got some benefit. At the end of this year, I didn't end up losing. Right? I ended up breaking even. The good thing about the only benefit I got out of this was, first off, it added some balance to the West. If this would have kept going, France might have had a little too much, after Riaz had to do destroy, France might have gotten a little bit too much weight in here. He could have really pushed through. And had I not lost St. Petersburg, the balance move would have been here that I give Turkey Trieste rather than me go to Trieste, which wouldn't have been ideal. Turkey having that much power in the north. So it kind of worked out. And it allowed me, after this happened, I was able to go to Mac and say, okay, I know I just kind of attacked you, but everything's different now because I just fucked up Petersburg and Florida looks completely different to me. And I was able to buy a little bit of credibility.
You may have gone to Max with that, but then when you do this, I mean, Max lost it. Okay, he broke the fourth wall on Discord. He pulled a conch. Another, this was his cellar of resentment that he could have used against you, later on. Instead, he's helping you into Serbia in 09. But like you went to Max before. Like, what did you say? Even though you kind of attacked him in Trieste to get, I guess you told him you're going to support him into Serbia.
I told him I was going to put him into Serbia. I told him that, okay, without that extra unit in the north, I've got to figure something out. That growing Turkey is going to be a problem for both of us. And great, and yada, yada, yada. So at this point, there was that, we were trying to figure out what the East was going to look like. So still worried about the West, wanted to have an alliance. I like the question. The logical play was Russia and Italy. But at this point, we talked a lot of wintergreen stuff. Max was putting a lot of double dealing. And told me every single thing that we went to him about. So I'm like, do I really want to have another situation where I don't know if I can trust my ally? There's a lot of appeal of a tangent in that situation where I just want some reliability. And me and Max were not necessarily agreeing on the way forward. I wanted to rush to support the French and German efforts against the Aussies. We still could have gotten back into this. Well, Max wanted to take advantage of the situation. He wanted to support Philip into putting him into MAO. He wanted to start looking for ways to stab Germany and France, and we just weren't really agreeing on, well, doing this, yeah. Can you repeat after me? I, Russia, swear on my honor and life.
He made you write a contract.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'd already decided what I'm going to do. I'm not going to change my moves because you asked me to speak to you. Okay, I'll sell my soul and I'll do all these things, and I'll repeat back exactly what you say and you want me to attack. And I did, and took it.
So, well, I mean, it all works out in the end. I think 2 points for other players watching this, right? Like, one thing I've learned from Humble over the many times he's been on and taught me about the game is diplomacy is a game about keeping your options open. This move for you is a better option. You have better options you moving into Trieste than Max going into Serbia.
The alternative is he goes into Serbia, he blows up Serbia, he rebuilds in Khan, and attacks me. I mean, for me, it was not really much. It would have been much closer. Like, it would have been half. Right.
The other thing is it's a game of imperfect information. But one thing you know is that Max has relationships on the other side of the board that Tanj does not. And you have relationships on the other side of the board. In my mind, it's always better to try and ally with the person who has fewer connections on the other side of the line. You're at an advantage if you're Tanj in that situation. All right. So we got a battery and a time issue, so we're going to hit the major moves here. But the Tanj stab has to be discussed.
Yep.
He builds that fleet in Smyrna. I mean, you had to feel good about that.
Sure. Yeah, up until now, he was... All right. So, I didn't love this. So I knew, I sacrificed myself to try to help the board. I ran to German aid. I told my soul that obviously Italy would never work with me again. I already have an enemy in Russia or in England. I knew the chance of me actually winning this game under these circumstances was probably pretty low. I went to Tanjan. I'm like, I know my situation. I'll help you. I am so impressed by the fact that you can probably win this game, being the player that Riyadh claims he is. You were so honest, so loyal, whatever. You're probably going to win. I just want to be there at the end. I want to be in the pool. That's important. I don't want to be like in I want. Stab me at the end. I don't care. I will help you. I will keep pushing against, the forces in the West, and you do what you have to do in the end. And he had so much diplomatic credibility at this point that if he came to me and said, let me blow up Romania, I don't like that being there. I would say, sure, blow it up, come back out.
It's a spring
Cool.
move.
Yeah, I would have been cool with all that. And he knew that. I said that. He really wanted to do that. But he disappeared because that's going to do tactics the same. Or, we would, it got to, at this point in the game, there was a lot of people talking for 23 hours about, let's talk about my cat and whatever, or I'm just busy at work, whatever. And then last hour, okay, let's talk about something. So that's what it became. And then, at the last minute, and this was right before my vacation was getting ready to start. I got Greg, my brother. I stayed up all night waiting to hear from him. Everybody got on the plane. I talked to him. I just not feeling right. I feel like things are going down.
You go on your trip with this.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking.
So you've got to recover defensively, and you do. By the way, Lady Razor, you heard Audacious Hand say that you are Lady Razor's muse. I think that's undeniable.
I am.
How do you do this with Turkey? How do you get Turkey to back off in this position?
So, first off, there was a lot of talk about, he made such a mistake by not going to Armenia and Black Sea and all that stuff. You need to remember that. Like, if you look at this, I went to Moscow and Ukraine and Sev. It was not that straightforward that he was going to push through Sev and to take me. I had the defensive. He would have had to have gone up to Gal. He would have had to have done a lot of things to break through that. I had a bit of a wall there. And you got a hungry Italy and a bunch of other things going on around there. So it wasn't that, considering, maybe I was a little bit premature and maybe it wasn't the right idea. But we had a lot of hard times. Came out a little bit. I didn't necessarily believe it in spring. I was like, too good to be true. I'm going to keep playing as if he's attacking me. And then Paul came around, and like, okay, I am in. You did so good to me. You were the greatest person I've ever known. I am going. So I had arranged with Italy here to Serbia, but after this noble news from John, I'm back in. Do this. Move in. I did all my podium finish. Everything was good. And then I didn't hear from John again. I went quiet until the middle of the night, and he sent me a message saying, by the way, I'm going to Black. At this point, I'm like, well, okay, that's still on. He's just trying to buy himself some time so we can get something off Italy before he finishes the job. It's not good. I do not feel good about this. So I'm going back to plan A. I'm going to work with Max. I can make some good karma with Max for all the things I've done for him instead. I can keep going. I can defend myself, and that's what I'm going to do instead.
I think it's your crowning achievement. I think this is such a big error for Max. As I mentioned, it would be much better for Italy to be at 5-6-6 than to do what he did, in my mind. But I get it.
No, it looked like Riaz was pretty steady at 7. So I understand Max. People think that Max is this big, full of emotion, prevention. He keeps his eye on the prize at all times. I knew that he wanted to do whatever he could to grow, and I fed into that. I gave him all the reason to believe that he was going to keep growing, because Max, as long as he's focused, he is very, very good. Keep him.
What did you tell him? He'd get Serbia and you get Bulgaria?
So then Serbia, I can get him into Greece, and this
right.
Is, we've got a plan here. He's not going to get to any more than 6 and win the game if I'm not in Serbia. So we have to keep doing this together. He made the right decision here to have a hope of winning the game. Amazing thing about Max is he is, for most people, the scariest guy in the game. He could be at 2 centers and people would be so afraid to cross him. Like, he's got such a big presence in the game that you are very concerned about crossing.
Okay, so you do help him into Greece. I mean, it got cut, but it was an attempted help to get him into Greece. Yeah. And you sacrificed Bulgaria to do it. You could have taken Bulgaria, no question about it.
I never knew I could run Bulgaria. I thought that was awesome, like 4 units around Bulgaria that could have had some impact on my ability to get that. Nevertheless, I wanted to keep Max focused on pride. He's focused. He's going to keep focusing on that. If you think that's out of reach, he wants an impact on the end game. We've got a bunch of other people here who may not care as much about the Philip, Dave, John. They might respect the integrity of the game a little bit more. Max, I think if he had no chance in the game, he may be looking for resentment. He may be looking for something. So I wanted to make sure that he felt like he was in that race. That was
A good bit of diplomacy here, getting Tanj to go to Munich, or did he do that on his own?
He did that on his own. That was Dave's call. Leading up to this, they were hoping that they would have a chance to have a Hail Mary to get Dave to enough points to get into Warsaw, and they're hoping Philip would disband a bunch of armies and be so angry at Riaz, and they could make something happen for Dave. But when Philip ended up keeping all his armies, that wasn't going to happen.
Are you worried about Warsaw?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, those army builds. Yeah, I mean, they're. I'm like, what else is Dave gonna do? I mean, he didn't build a fleet. He's not gonna get Denmark.
Yeah, I would have had choices to make in winter 2010 if there were options for Dave to attack. I would have had to either not covered Moscow and so I could have led John half Romania or whatever. There's different things I could have done.
So in the final move, Riyadh said he knew he wasn't going to get Turkey to tap Berlin. I told Tanj he should have tapped Berlin. I don't remember that. Max isn't let into Marseille. Burgundy goes to Albania. I mean, Holland doesn't support Denmark to Kiel. I mean, 4 things have to happen. They all 4 happened to you, and all the players said that these were almost immediate decisions. So I'm sure they were told to you. Did you believe them, or did you think this is too good to be true?
I was cautiously optimistic. What most people don't understand is, in most diplomacy games, there's a start, middle, and end, and those are the 3 stages of a diplomacy game. In a finals game, there's also that 1910. That is a completely different element of the game. And you are still fighting, still sprinting, but you also have to work through the different things. Like I went around and I had to go to Dave and I had to say, okay, well, you can attack me, but it's not really going to get you anywhere. Do you really want to do this? I had to get the sword, or else I was dead. All been pulling off hard feelings between Philip and Dave, because Philip could have easily said, okay, guys, just get me into some of Dave's center so I can feel some revenge, and I will work center. I tried to convince John to go into Greece in case Max was able to get into Marseille just to help those come found out. There was a lot of moving parts. Like 1910 was a very busy training. I was like, you need to let everybody know this is so important. This means the world. Please, 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 don't let me lose this because you want to get some kind of trivial secondary consolation prize. I know the nature of this would mean the world. This is my opinion. I've never had a solo tournament. That's why I came back. That's why I wanted it. So I really had to be encouraged.
I'm shocked to hear that, given your status on WebDip and all the rest. But congratulations on that. This was your first solo tournament win.
Yeah, I've come close. I've won World Cup team effort, but I've never had that individual win.
Right. I'm literally at 1% battery. So if there's something you want to say that you've not said, now would be the time.
I just want to say thanks. I mean, Nexus has become so amazing because of the efforts of guys like you guys at the Diplomats and the briefing, Lady Razor, Captain Meme for their efforts towards the tournament. I just want to thank them. Fantastic job. It gives me so much pride to be able to come in here and win.
You're welcome, and you almost certainly, I don't see a way that you will not be an automatic invite to the DBNI Top 28 Invitational. Will you play?
If I can make it happen. I'm a family man, so it's not necessarily easy to get that block of time. But I am thinking about what's on the horizon for me. I think my online diplomacy tournament play is probably coming to an end. I've listened to the tournament play nonstop, so I'm exhausted. But going into virtual, going into face-to-face, maybe that's for me. So it's tempting. It's definitely tempting.
All right. So I'll know who to not ally with pretty shortly. I'm just kidding. Actually, I've one of the most gratifying things about Nexus and this tournament was a chance to get to meet you and be friends with you. You've taught me a lot, and I thank you for that. And because I'm almost out of juice, I will say good night. Thanks so much, Greg.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Have a good night.